Hey guys, what is up? It is Prime Time here for another PvP build order slash stuff. Anyway, forget it. Let me introduce the players so we can get on with this build order. And I know I haven't done a PvP build order in a long time, if my memory serves me correct. So I think I'm going to spend maybe the next few days just doing a few different build orders. And yeah, the only problem though is actually, as we see quickly a probe moving down to the bottom of the map. And no, I'm not showing you a 2-gate or can rush. Whoops, I already had that open. Yeah, as the new patch came out, 1.53 or whatever it was, it actually deleted, or it didn't delete, but it makes you have to like go through a long loading process, since my internet's not that great, to load games that you've saved. So yeah, basically any new games. So I had like a lot of replays saved that I was gonna eventually put on the channel, I think. At least that was the hope. But now I basically got to get new games, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. So hopefully I'll have some good replays coming out soon enough. Anyway. But anyway, so let's get to this build before I miss everything that's going on. What we saw, or what we didn't see, is at the very beginning of the game, I split my workers like a Korean Grandmaster, and then as soon as one of these workers brought back 5 minerals, I sent it down to the bottom of the map to my opponent's spawn. You can do this basically on any map that's not too giant, such as Condemned Ridge or Antigua Shipyard, where you don't know exactly where your opponent spawns. So basically I sent a probe down to his base, built a pylon either on 9 supply or 10 supply, whatever works better. And actually, let's go ahead and see, just so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about when I say works better, because that's a little vague. Probes moving on down the map, blah blah blah. If you just look at my supply right now, I'm at 9, and because if I built another probe, okay, I did have another probe queued up, and then I canceled it, so that was actually a little confusing, but basically, had I built the 10th probe, it would have delayed this pylon a little bit. On slightly bigger maps, maybe like Daybreak, building the 10th probe and then the pylon is the order you want to do it in, but either way, not a big deal. Essentially though, all you gotta know is as soon as you build the pylon, the next thing you build should be the gateway. And that goes down on 9 supply as well. And now, this next little bit is completely optional. Now, personally, when I do this, I don't mind if they scout this. It really doesn't matter to me. So I go ahead and scout immediately with the probe that made the gateway, because this probe, all I really want to do with this after I scout with it is take a watchtower. So I'm not trying to make a forge or another gateway. And because of that, yes, you can scout immediately, but if you do scout immediately like this, a good player will realize something's up, because normally in PvP you scout after your gateway. That's exactly what our opponent Kelson's doing, and that is the proper scouting time. And also, if you are to scout, then just as a general tip, typically you want to check regions of your base where you could be getting 2-gated. So for most maps, there'll be 1 spot in your main base, there'll be 1 spot in your natural, and then also some players will do it from your 3rd or 4th base depending on the map. So just be aware. Usually I would say scout your main and natural, and if he's going to go from your 3rd base with a 2-gate, you just got to hope that the distance that he's sending zealots from is too far to kill you. So totally up to you though. But because he sees this here, he should know something's up. However, as we're going to find out, Kelson does not realize that I am up to something. So basically, the reason I do send this in though is because I want to know if he's 2-gating me, or if he's going to forge, or if he's going to cannon rush me. And if your opponent 2-gates you, it's actually, well, it's pretty circumstantial. But if your opponent is cannon rushing you or 2-gating you, just get a forge at your own base, and then you can apply pressure with this 1 gateway. So if they don't play defensive, they're going to lose their probes. If they do play defensive, you can easily defend. And then it's sort of like a coin toss whether or not you can defend a 2-gate or a cannon rush by them. It just depends how good at doing it they are. Depends how good they are at doing it. God. Actually, cannon rushes, you can defend those quite easily. But you just got to realize you got to pull probes for the first bit of it. And before we look at what's going to happen here and how this progresses, I was meaning to make videos where I show how to defend a 2-gate, how to defend a cannon rush. However, as I alluded to earlier, the videos that I was planning on making sort of now have to take like an hour to load so I can actually show them. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or if I'm just going to wait till I get cannon rush and then I'll show you that game. Or I could just sort of try to do a game with one of my friends and then play it out like that. But we'll see. I'll get back to that later. Anyway, regardless, I did chrono boost out one zealot, and regardless of how much defensive stuff your opponent's getting, as we can see he's getting a forge and a gateway, you should basically always chrono boost out one zealot. And that's just because it's going to be basically cost effective. But because I see that my gateway is earlier than his, I know that I can get a zealot lead, and so I'm going to make a second one, and I should also chrono boost this, and there it goes. Now if he had 2 gateways, I would not make a second zealot, but because it takes so much time to get a cannon up, I know that I can get this zealot and do some damage with it if I decide to make it. Usually you're going to want to stop at 2 zealots unless you can somehow kill his zealot with your 2, but that's unlikely. So now here we go. They're going to go back in. Your main goal is to kill as many probes as you can and target fire them down if you can, but your opponent's going to want to get a surround on you, so try not to let that happen. As we can see here, he basically did exactly what I shouldn't have let him do, but I do manage to kill a few probes, and although this does not look too good for me, hold on, where's the workers killed? Control R. Alright, Control R! I killed 3 workers, his zealot almost died, but the important thing here is look at all this stuff he's got going on. And then look at the production tab. You know what you don't see? A cybernetics core for either of us. His has yet to start, mine is already finished. And by the way, I'm going to go back in the next video actually, I'm going to show the same build but a different outcome, a different response from my opponent. And in that video I'm going to be more more focused on showing you the backbone of the build and sort of what you do at your own base. But for now we're just going to look at the micro and your offensive strategy essentially. So getting the second cannon is overkill unless I was 2-gating him, which by the way he still does not know this is here. If your opponent decides to go for a forge, which is pretty typical to defend, he will also most likely try to counter cannon rush you. So after you see that he's sort of successfully defended, you should be scouting around your base for a pylon or something, and he will most likely be trying to put down a pylon and a cannon, so just be aware of that. However, if all else fails and he starts to get pylons and cannons up, you could skip this warp gate research for a little bit and just get out stalkers. So that's also an option. And now I'm going to go into the follow-up because this game and the next video I'm going to show you are different. Actually, they're very different, but we'll see why. And by the way, these 2 buildings essentially are going to die. Alright, it's 250 minerals, and then you are potentially losing however many zealots you're going to make. But we're going to see why this is worth it, and also sometimes your opponent will try to counterattack immediately with whatever units they make, especially if your opponent responds with a 2-gate. They realize that they've overmade zealots, and the only logical thing to do is really counterattack. And at that point, you're really relying on your micro, and you need stalkers. So, in this particular game, we don't see that circumstance because my opponent did not do a 2-gate. He did not have excess zealots. But in some cases, they'll have like 4 zealots charging at your ramp, and you'll have like 2 stalkers and a zealot maybe. So, if you don't have the best micro, this will be a learning experience for you. It'll be a fun time microing around your base. And it's okay to lose some probes, because if your opponent plays this defensively, you're going to have a probe lead anyway. And again, I'll go into the other circumstances, the other scenarios in the next video. So, in the meantime though, what we have going on is warp gate research is going to be way ahead of his warp gate, and essentially what this allows you to do is to 4-gate him, or 3-gate him. If you don't have a ton of probes, and you know you can't afford a 4-gate, just go for a 3-gate. Chances are it'll hit a little bit quicker anyway. But we can see I did have the money, so I'm going to throw down the 2 more gateways. So this warp gate research will be done in the next 40 seconds-ish. So we can see it's not even really that much after 6 minutes, and I'm still hitting with a 4 gate. He is going to kill his pylon. Now sometimes you will get lucky. I actually didn't mention this, but if your opponent tries to counterattack you with their zealots, if they had a 2 gate to defend your 1 gate, sometimes they won't even kill the gateway and the pylon, and you can just warp in here and use the gateway as a warp gate. Or sometimes they will only kill one of the 2, and if they don't kill the pylon, then that's great because you don't have to rebuild that. If they kill the gateway, you can just, or if they don't kill the gateway, you can build another pylon here, have another gateway at your disposal, and have high ground vision. So either one of those things are useful. Because he did kill that pylon, I'm having to rebuild these over here. Warp gate research is done, by the way, so here we go. For our opponent Kelson, it's only halfway done, so he will not have that basically for this whole entire game unless I let him live long enough. But here we go, a little bit of a micro engagement. He just really couldn't afford the units because of his his investment in his cannons. That's what I was trying to say. But even if he had more units, it would just be, I'm just going to wait for the next warp in cycle, and then I'll overrun you. It's pretty much that simple. So here we go. I can just speed through this because basically all you want to avoid at this point is avoid fighting the cannons. Kill off key structures. This pylon would be nice. Cybernetics core is always nice. And just force your opponent to come to you. So the rest of this is pretty simple. And let me get some soda before I die and go to iron. So yeah, that's a 4 gate, and the whole idea is basically out-rushing your opponent to 4 gate after he gets thrown off his build because you're 1 gate proxy, and you're able to do this because his cybernetics core is way delayed because he overcommitted to defenses. In terms of overcommitting to defenses, all that means is if he were to respond to your 1 gate with a 2 gate, or actually, basically I just out-micro him to the end there. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but essentially right now, if instead this forge was a gateway, that would be considered overcommitting, and that would delay his cybernetics core enough to where you can still get warp gate out a lot faster. The forge is actually worse for him because he's going to have stationary cannons, whereas if he were to do a 2 gate, he could reapply pressure with a counterattack, as I mentioned. Now I'm going to talk a lot more about this in the next video, and I'm going to show you guys what happens when your opponent does not overcommit to defense. So I hope you guys enjoy this game, and I will follow this up in the next video. So before I say go try this build, I want to encourage you to watch the next video. Hopefully I'll have the description of this build in the description, the build order of this build in the description, as well as a link to the next video. But we'll see how lazy I am. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and good luck on the ladder.